As many of you know, I have been a mixed martial artist enthusiast for the past 15 years. It started when I came to London in 2002, started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it just kept going. I was at UFC 38, I believe, here at Royal Albert Hall that year in London, and I've been to so many here in London since. So I'm making a prediction. December 30th, Ronda Rousey will win. Now, I know a lot of you are saying we don't know. Ronda hasn't fought in, I think, over a year now. Her last devastating loss to Holly Holm really took her out of her game for so long that we don't know what she's going to be like. And she's been making movies, etc., etc. We saw a similar champion defeated in Mr. Conor McGregor bounce back, get straight back into it, and get a win over Nate Diaz. And honestly, that is the most ideal way to suffer a loss, to get back on the horse, and it's much easier said than done. And there's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks out there, and I can be one too, but it's a different thing to actually walk the walk than just say talk about it. But this is why I believe Ronda will win, because she's a champion. She was an Olympic judoka and faced many losses in her life, including not getting gold when she fought for the Olympics, which is probably the most devastating thing that ever happened to her in her life. It's still something that bothers her. And yet, she rallied. She continued on, she went to Strikeforce, she went to the UFC, and went undefeated. And so she's not someone that is not familiar with loss. And while, yes, this was a devastating one, I don't believe it's going to keep Ronda Rousey down. And Amanda Nunes is a sizable opponent, but I still believe Ronda is going to stay calm this time, and she's going to work her game plan. And when she doesn't overextend, she's very hard to beat. Her judo, her clinch work, her distance is very, very good. Her boxing, I believe, is a little overrated from what she thought it was, but everything else makes up for it. And we've seen that in the Miesha Tate fights. We've seen that in other fights that she's had in the division. So I'm putting my money on Ronda. I think it's the least favorite she's been for a fight, but I think she still is favored. But we'll all see it go down on December 30th at the UFC. And I just want to say another thing. I want to give a huge shout out to women's MMA. It's something I was talking about 3-4 years ago on London Real with Peter Irving, another MMA fighter here in Britain he's extraordinary. Good friend of mine, co-host on London Real. And we always used to say, I love watching the women fight because the women fights are more exciting. Now, how can this be? Maybe they're not as strong. Maybe they're not as skilled as some of the men. But the women in that cage, they don't have to be there. Matter of fact, to be a woman in the cage, it takes so much more resolve because it's not an obvious career path as it is with a man, because a lot of guys get into it because they're athletes or because maybe it affirms their male dominance or machismo. But for a woman to get in there, you have to fight everything, societal norms, everything everyone tells about you that's normal and right, and yet you still get in there. And when they're in the cage, they always seem to fight with such a vengeance that I just don't see in male fighters sometimes. And I think that's why the women's division has done so well in the UFC. And thank God that Dana White went ahead and embraced that, even after saying for so long that he was never going to have women in MMA. I respect a man who can change his mind. So big love goes out to all the women MMA fighters. That includes Ronda Rousey. That includes Miesha Tate if she stays in retirement. That includes Amanda Nunes, Juliana Pena, Holly Holm. The list goes on. And of course, Johanna Jędrzejczyk, our 115-pound lightweight Polish destroyer. So love the women in MMA. And let's go, Ronda Rousey. Let's go, champ, December 30th. Tell me what you think. If you think she's going to win or think she's going to lose, in the comments below. Peace.